Good morning. I'm Matthew Johnson, the senior minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Rockford, and welcome. Whether you're joining us live at 10 Central on September 6th, 2020, or later, welcome. Whether you're a member or friend of this congregation or another Unitarian Universalist congregation who's found your way here for worship, welcome. If you are exploring religion anew, figuring out who you are and what's important to you and looking for community, even online, welcome. Whether you are frightened or grieving or determined or curious or sad or patient or impatient, welcome. We're glad you're here. We're coming to you from the sanctuary at the church. With me today is Tim Anderson, my colleague in worship and the music director at the church. Lindsay Dunn, our Director of Religious Education, and Omega Burkhart, our ministerial intern, who you'll see each of in a moment. Autumn Powell, our office manager, in the back of the hall running technology for us. Our worship associate, Judy Johnson, has pre-recorded their testimony, which you'll hear later in the service. And Chris Ainsworth, our membership manager, is at home, but chiming in on the Facebook feed. If you're watching this on Facebook, there's a comment area, and we invite you to comment, particularly say good morning. Let us know that you're here. It's a way to reach that community and be reminded of one another's presence. Do remember that the feed is public, and be thoughtful about what you post. So I'm going to ring the bell, and we're going to worship together. We're a new month, a new theme, and a new hymn of the month. So September, our theme is worth and dignity. We're thinking about what it means to affirm that first Unitarian Universalist principle, the worth and dignity of each person. We're thinking about that this month, and so a song about the worth and dignity that is in us, the power and the sacred that is in us, of course, is the African American spiritual, This Little Light of Mine. We're going to do one verse each week as we sing together. So we'll start with the first one, the one you know well, and I invite you to sing along at home with Tim here at the church.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
I am thrilled to be with you again this morning. If this is your first time with us, we're especially happy that you have joined us. So you can also comment on our Facebook page as a way to stay in touch. You can look at our newsletter at uurockford.org and sign up there. The flaming chalice is a symbol of our faith, a beacon of truth, a fire for justice, a warmth for the soul. As Lindsay lights our chalice this morning here at the church, let us speak together the covenant of this church. Love is the spirit of this church and reason its guide. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to serve human need. This is our covenant. Now, let us sing together our chalice response song.
May love shine forth through us today. May light of reason guide our way. May beauty truth and joy become a flame that burns in everyone.
All over the country, I have gathered different times in different places with other Unitarian Universalists, with college students, with interfaith gatherings in church sanctuaries and courtyards and on city streets for the work of justice and mercy and compassion, to hold in our hearts those who've died, to express our sorrow at vigils, to express our faith when we are together. And often, we light candles. They're not always this big, and sometimes they're electronic. And we hold them up in the sky, not like at a rock concert, although there's something similar there, but the candle, a symbol of that fire that burns in each person, a symbol of our commitment to the sacredness of each person. So we have candles here, which I'll light. And as I light these candles, I invite you to think of someone that you are fond of and their worth and dignity. I invite you to think of someone that you have not seen in a long time and their worth and dignity. I invite you to think of someone who makes you boiling mad and reach deep for their worth and dignity. I invite you to think of yourself and remember your worth and dignity. Let us worship together.
Whatsoever things are pure and just, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are filled with praise, think on these things. Whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever is of good report, if there be any virtue, think on these things. Oh, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever is true, if there be any virtue, think on these things.
Good morning. I am Lindsay, and I'm the Director of Religious Education here at the church, and I'm so happy to be with you this morning. Our story this morning is The Day the Crayons Quit by Drew DeWalt. I'll be reading a handful of letters from the book today, but I strongly encourage you to check out the other letters that are included in this hysterical and excellent book. One day in class, Duncan went to take out his crayons and found a stack of letters with his name on them. The first letter was from Red Crayon. Hey, Duncan, it's me, Red Crayon. We need to talk. You make me work harder than any of your other crayons. All year long, I wear myself out coloring fire engines, apples, strawberries, and everything else that's red. I even work on holidays. I have to color all the Santas at Christmas and all the hearts on Valentine's Day. I need a rest. Your overworked friend, Red Crayon. Duncan found another letter from Yellow Crayon. Dear Duncan, Yellow Crayon here. I need you to tell Orange Crayon that I am the color of the sun. I would tell him, but we are no longer speaking. And I can prove that I am the color of the sun, too. Last Tuesday, you used me to color in the sun on your Happy Farm coloring book. In case you've forgotten, it's on page 7. You can't miss me. I'm shining down brilliantly on a field of yellow corn, your pal, and the true color of the sun, Yellow Crayon. To which Orange Crayon responded, Dear Duncan, I see Yellow Crayon already talked to you, the big whiner. Anyway, could you please tell Mr. Tattletale that he is not the color of the sun? I would, but we're no longer speaking. We both know I am clearly the color of the sun because on Thursday you used me to color the sun on both the Monkey Island and Meet the Zookeeper pages in your Day at the Zoo coloring book. Aren't you glad I'm here? Huh? Your pal and the real color of the sun, Orange Crayon. One of the final letters that Duncan read was from Pink Crayon. Duncan, okay, listen here, kid. You have not used me once in the past year. It's because you think I'm a girl's color, isn't it? Speaking of which, please tell your little sister I said thank you for using me to color in her Little Princess coloring book. I think she did a fabulous job of staying inside the lines. Now, back to us. Could you please use me sometime to color the occasional pink dinosaur, or monster, or cowboy? Goodness knows they could all use a splash of color. Your unused friend, Pink Crayon. Well, poor Duncan just wanted to color, and of course he wanted his crayons to be happy. And that gave him an idea. When Duncan showed his teacher his new picture, she gave him an A for coloring and an A+ for creativity.
Such a great story. Like Lindsay told you, there are more letters for more colors in the book, so check it out. And I love the way they negotiated clearly about their demands and what they expected and did not want to work until their demands were met. That's good labor organizing, which is our theme for today. We are gathered together across time and space once again for worship. We'll be doing this for the foreseeable future. Folks have been asking how long, and the staff and the board have made a commitment that the safety of your staff and the whole congregation, including its most vulnerable people, will be first in our thinking. So until there's a vaccine that all the staff can take, we'll be online, and we hope you'll keep joining us in that way. There are lots of events and activities coming up in the life of the church, and the big one I want to let you know about is that next Sunday, a day that is not supposed to be raining like today, after joining us online for worship, we invite you to drive, bike, or walk on over to the church. Bring some food if you like, bring your own chair, and we will gather on the lawn outside for a homecoming celebration and do-it-yourself picnic, or just walk around and wave and say hello. Whatever you feel comfortable with, do wear a mask. We'll keep distant from each other, but it will be good to see one another's eyes, if not one another's full faces, and it will be delightful. So that'll be after service, starting 11:20, whenever you can kind of get over here, and we would love to see you there. That's next week on September 13th here at the church. There will be coffee hour after the service today, so you can join on the Zoom and check in with other church members today. That'd be great. They've got wonderful Wednesday programs coming up. Every other Wednesday, we have a program to engage in. We had a great turnout last week and a great conversation, and there'll be one in 2 weeks' time, a week and a half now. Will be the next wonderful Wednesday. So be sure to check out the newsletter for that and all kinds of other upcoming programs and activities in the church. Do check in with each other. I continue to hear about you caring for one another and having front porch visits and making telephone calls and sending notes, and it is delightful how you do care for one another, so keep that up. We take up an offering each week to support the work of justice and mercy in the world. This month, as we're thinking about inherent worth and dignity for all people and what we can do, we're focused on our justice theme, on our Justice for All team, which works on anti-racism and connected anti-oppressions. One of those is the rights of folks, especially people of color and others, to organize and protect their right at work, to be treated with dignity and safety. So we're sharing 80% of what we collect today with the National Domestic Workers Alliance, which works to connect domestic workers across the country with resources to make sure that they are safe and well compensated for their incredibly important work to take care of people, families, homes, and places where people work. You can give online, uurockford.org/donate, or by texting the number on the screen and select Share the Plate. We also ask that if you're in the habit of making your gift in person when you're here, don't forget to send in a check to the church, or you can also make your regular operating gift online, and we're grateful for your continued support for the church. The offering will now be given and received.
Good morning. I'm Judy Johnson. I'm worship associate today. As a teacher and a speech therapist and an administrator in the Rockford Public Schools, I was privileged to have many remarkable experiences with children and families. Reflection on these experiences has reminded me that the individuals I encountered inspired me throughout my career. I'd like to share one of those experiences with you. Jane, not her real name, was 8 years old when she came to me at the language development classroom at Guilford Center School. Her speech and language was severely delayed. She spoke very little, and when she did, it was very difficult to understand what she had to say. Most of the children at the language development classroom came from poor families. Jane had had a particularly difficult start in life. At that time, her father and stepmother had gained custody. Charlie, another student in the classroom, came from a wealthy family. Charlie's mother was also very helpful in the classroom with many events, and she shared with me her observations of the poor children, which moved her. At Christmas, Charlie's classmates and I were invited to the family restaurant for a very special Christmas party. Charlie and his mom had gifts for each of the children, beautifully wrapped in colorful paper. I was overwhelmed by the family's generosity. The children eagerly opened their packages, carefully wrapped. They opened the gifts with glee, except for Jane. She opened the box slowly, as if savoring the process. Jane's gift was a beautiful baby doll, and she beamed with delight. The other children were happily engaged with their individual gifts, but Jane carefully returned her gift to the box and restored it to its original wrapping as best she could. Charlie's mom and I were puzzled and asked Jane why she had returned the doll to the box. Smiling brightly, Jane struggled to explain that she was taking it home to her little sister. I was awestruck by the generosity of this child. Almost 30 years later, a young woman approached me at the bank and announced that I had been her teacher. I recognized her immediately. It was Jane. I told her I was so happy to see her and asked how she was doing. In halting but articulate speech, she reported that she had 3 sons and was working. She went on to report that she did not collect Social Security disability payments like so many of her high school classmates were doing. It seemed important to her to report to me this information. She seemed proud of herself. I can't exactly say how I responded. I was so pleased that she was willing and confident to come and talk with me. She had come so far. I think I said something to her like, "You must be very proud." I saw a young woman with confidence, self-worth, and dignity. Wonderful, an inspiration to me. At this time in history, I'm so grateful to be with you as worship associate. My reflection and testimony today have renewed me at a time when I am near despair. Love and peace to you all.
Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none.
So as we were talking about labor this week, I thought, well, we have a resident expert. Rather than hearing more words from me, and I got to tell you, I'm getting tired of the sound of my own voice, let's hear from some other folks in the congregation. And I hope to do this more and more often in this format, which allows for this to be done. So I was thrilled that Sarah Dorner agreed to chat with me about labor and the folks that she works with. She also let me know, to let you know, that there's a rally to save the United States Postal Service tomorrow, and it's in Midtown. Let's see here. I can blow this up. Starts, it looks like, at... I got to make this larger so I can see what I'm looking at. There we go. Starts at 10 o'clock near the RPS admin building in Midtown, and then a walk to the post office downtown, and then to Davis Park. Bring your signs and banners in support of the Postal Service and unions and solidarity, and wear a mask. So that's tomorrow on Labor Day. Now, there is no Labor Day parade, so make your own parade by fighting to save the United States Postal Service. But I invite you to listen to this conversation that Sarah and I had earlier this week about what's going on in our local community.
Okay. Great. Matthew Johnson, and I'm with Sarah Dorner, member of this church. And Sarah, why don't you tell folks what you do during the day, for those who don't know, and what your role is?
So my day job is I'm a labor representative. And I am so happy because I'm a labor representative for public employees here in my hometown of Rockford, which is something that I always dreamed of doing, coming back and making a difference. And to me, the way to make a difference was to help workers have a voice in their workplace and to help lift up some of our poorest communities. And I'm also really honored to be the vice president of Rockford United Labor, which is all of the labor unions in Rockford. And so I get to reach out with other unions and learn more about our factory workers, our public employees, construction, building trades. If you're in a union, we represent you.
Tell me about some of the folks that you represent, some of the public employees, and what kind of work do they do?
So public employees here in the Rockford area that we represent are social workers, people who work in our unemployment office, our human services. And then we also represent direct care providers who are the direct care workers who live and work in group home settings. They work with people with developmental, intellectual, and behavioral disabilities. They're their primary caregivers usually. And then I represent, as a lot of my friends with the church know, I represent about 750 Rockford public school employees. And those tend to be the hourly employees who are nutrition service workers, bus drivers, and paraprofessionals.
Sure. So you talk with folks about their work, and I have to imagine that a lot of the folks, they're serving the public. They take some pride in that work. What do they love about their job, but also what makes their job hard that we should know about?
So public employees love serving the public. They're very proud. They identify, like City of Rockford employees identify with the City of Rockford. Rockford Public School workers identify with Rockford Public Schools. They identify with the state. And so they're really proud to be part of this larger entity that is caring for the community. And I know that they love the help that their work allows them to provide. But their jobs are getting way more difficult. We are coming off a governor, Bruce Rauner, who vilified public employees. There's a lot of misunderstanding about public employees and the work they do. And I think it's because it's tax funded. And so they're always used as leverage, in different political fights. And I think that's very frustrating to them. And I know right now, some of the issues they're dealing with is just not being able to be present and be among the community as much as they'd like to do, and of course, the national attack by President Trump on workers, working people, and unions, frankly, all they want is to have a voice, a seat at the table. Workers know that they won't always get their way, and nobody goes into public service to get rich, but they want to have a voice. And a lot of times that voice is on behalf of the people they serve. It's not just about wages, hours, and benefits.
Right. Yeah, I have to imagine, say, like the direct care workers who are working with adults with disabilities or other kind of issues, they've got a real clear insight about what those folks need in order to thrive and keep them safe and keep the workers safe. And I imagine that must be pretty important to them.
It's everything. And so the two direct care places that have recently organized where we're negotiating their first collective bargaining agreements, which is their union contract, is Easter Seals. A lot of people know Easter Seals. It's a school where, you know, they teach individuals with developmental, behavioral, intellectual, and physical disabilities. And also, we have a place called Willow Glen Academy. And the two stand out in my mind because those are the places where the workers were very clear. Look, we would like to make more because we'd like to attract more staffing. And of course, we'd like to make an honest living. But we're most concerned about the individuals. We're so short-staffed sometimes the individuals are put at risk with each other. So if one individual, I had a situation where one group homesteading, an individual threw a large grill at another individual's head, and a direct care provider, an employee making $13 an hour, jumped in front of the grill and blocked it off. And I have workers who have CTE, the concussion, like
football players get.
Yeah, exactly. Although they do not make football player wages, they CTE, dislocated shoulders, all sorts of physical ailments that come from trying to protect the other clients. And so when they have formed their unions, they say, look, we just want to be safe, and we just want to keep the other children safe. Another example that I really want to share is. We had one provider who was not, one direct care provider who was not providing shampoos or soaps that clients of color needed. Like they were used to, and they called them special, like special shampoos and soaps. But these were things, they were essential to the individuals, in order, like hygiene products. And so we used our voice as a union to take the employer to the table and say, look, you have to treat all of the clients and individuals that you serve with dignity, and that means providing the bare essentials.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if folks are in a union, of course, they're represented by somebody and they can participate. If folks are retired or they're in a profession where there isn't one and they want to support the dignity of labor, other than making a Share the Plate gift today, what suggestion would you have about what they could do to support working folks and those on the front lines in direct care and public service?
Thank you for asking that. The number one thing that anybody can do is when you see an initiative by a company or an employer, ask what the workers think of it, the frontline staff. Like, what do they think? Have they been part of this decision? I hear examples sometimes of like, oh, Home Depot gave all this money, or they're participating in this. But how are they treating their workers? Are their workers dignified in what they do? And that's across all professions. So one thing that you could do locally, I think, would be to please advocate for the Rockford Public Schools employees, the teachers, but also the ancillary and support staff. Please recognize that your public services are being done by union members and workers who, often work a ton of overtime. Like I know right now our public service department is down, and so we've got people working on water main breaks and leaf pickup and all of those things that we value in our society. So I would ask, please think about the people who are on the front lines. Like, what do they have to say about this? Ask and support them.
Wonderful. Good. Thank you for your time today, Sarah. I really appreciate it, and have a happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day.
I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Great Spirit of life and love, be with us this day and every day. Be with us as we attend to those who work on our behalf among us, count their numbers. Be with us as we see the humanity in each and every person. Those we might pass by too quickly. Help us to pause, to notice. Be with us in the work for justice, near and far, and in the life of compassion. May that spirit of compassion rise in us. May our common humanity be felt in our heart and known in our mind, this day and every day. Amen.
builds a house with his hands. 30 years go by, it stands where nothing stood, a house of stone. The mason sleeps real good. He does his workday flies. Quitting time's a big surprise, and then it's one more stone to get just right. It's always one more stone before the night. Every house he builds, every stone he lays, it's not just making money and counting off the days. He builds a house with his hands. 100 years go by, it stands. It tells you who he was. A life goes fast, but the work a mason does, it's made to last. The work a mason does. It's made to last.
When Sarah and I were chatting before I hit record on that conversation, she asked unprompted if I was familiar with the Studs Terkel book, Working. It was such a fine example of the kind of respect we talked about seeing the work that we do with our hands and our lives and our time with respect, with honor and dignity. And of course, because this is how it works, Tim had already selected the song you just heard, The Mason, from the musical based on the book. Each song about different working people, delivery drivers, mill workers, cleaners, teachers, office workers, and more, many more. And the point of it is that most folks, like the mason in the song, take pride in their work. It's how most of us spend most of our days. And to do something well, to build a house that lasts for 100 years, to show kindness to a customer, to solve a problem, to make something work well, matters to us. I said most workers take pride in their work, and really, I think it's fair to say the vast majority. That's what I see when I interact with folks. More often than not, people seem to do their best. They want things done well. But you can tell, right? I mean, what I notice is that there are places where almost everyone who works there takes pride in their work, treats everyone with dignity, where they smile and seem glad to be there. And there are places where that's just not as true, right? Where folks are grumpy or kind of mailing it in. And when I notice that, when I find out with a little bit of digging, is that the first place, the place where workers take pride in their work, is a place that treats their employees with dignity, where they're respected, listened to about how to do things, and paid well, and afforded a safe place to work where they are seen. And the places that are not like that, you get what you'd expect. It's no surprise. Folks who take pride in their work gravitate to employers and to work where pride matters. and where there is mutual respect and dignity. There's a virtuous cycle and a vicious one. My first job was a scorekeeper at the Parks and Recs softball league, but my second job was a courtesy clerk at Safeway, a grocery store out west where I grew up. I bagged groceries and returned carts, made $4.25 an hour, and was a member of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. I don't know if it was a company-wide policy or just the manager of that particular store, but if little 16-year-old me had a suggestion, it was heard. If a customer had a concern, we were told to fix it, and we didn't need authorization from higher up to do what had to be done. My coworkers were almost entirely friendly. The company structured my hours around school. A lot of us were high school students. I was treated with respect, and I was told and rewarded for treating customers with respect as well. And the union made sure that we had breaks. You had to take your break on time. That was not negotiable. And promotions and safe conditions, which I appreciated when I got promoted to clean the deli and the bakery and the meat department at the end of the day. Lots of chemicals and tools on that high-powered washer, and I was given good instructions and equipment to do it. Respect and dignity. How much of that was because I'm white and male and middle class? That's a real question. If we want to talk about respect for work and the dignity of labor, then we need to make sure that our definitions of labor are fully inclusive. That we see all kinds of workers, not just some of them, with dignity and respect. Cleaning the meat department at the end of the day was not pleasant, I gotta tell you. It's one of the reasons I don't really eat meat anymore. But I was a unionized, white, well-educated high school student at a suburban grocery store, and we were not in the middle of a pandemic. So shift the focus to where many never look and many never see. Take those values, respect and dignity and safety, shift the focus. Shift the focus to a meat processing plant in rural Iowa. We say meat processing, what we mean is large-scale butcher. Hundreds of often undocumented workers crammed inside, poor ventilation in the midst of a pandemic. At multiple plants, when workers tested positive for COVID-19, the plants refused to tell other employees. Shift the focus. Been a lot of talk about crime recently, but you know the number one type of theft in this country? Far and away, hundreds of times more common than someone breaking into your house or stealing your wallet or your purse. The most common type of theft in the United States is wage theft, when employers steal from employees. Some studies indicate that employers steal from their employees to the tune of $15 billion a year, mostly by not paying overtime, or by rounding down partial hours, or other little tricks to deny folks a portion of their wages, but sometimes just not paying them at all. Payday comes and no check. Without a union or legal help, many stones make an arch, singly none. Most minimum wage workers just walk away. They can't fight that machine. Respect and dignity, but shift the focus. We took an offering for the National Domestic Workers Alliance today, an innovative union that's working to create cross-sector representation instead of employer-based representation. It's one way to make sure that folks who work, only one person at a place, or gig workers or contract workers, are also treated fairly and with decency. What would it mean for safety and dignity, for respect, for economic viability for their families, and for the safety of those they work with? You heard about that in the conversation Sarah and I had, for these workers to be treated well wherever they work. I know from my work on early childhood education in the Rockford area that wage and employment stability, regular pay, regular hours, and some parental leave, that these things make a measurable difference in the readiness of children to learn and thrive when they enter kindergarten. You can tell in the kids. But how many employers provide such things? And without social structures, including government action and rules, how can we lift up doing right instead of having a race to the bottom where whoever can cut costs the most wins? Because this can't just be on the consumer. We're squeezed too. So of course many will take what's less expensive. And how do you know which folks treat their workers well and which don't? You hear one thing, you hear something else. It can't just be on the consumer. It has to be a social commitment, a set of transparent rules and benchmarks, a social commitment to the dignity of workers and the dignity of work. This isn't political. It's religious. It's about human dignity, that each person, the mason, the house cleaner, the truck driver, the administrator, the child care assistant, and the unemployed too, everyone, regardless of employment status, wealth, income, or education, everyone has inherent dignity, given worth, a child of God, a member of the human family, sacred and holy. And so we seek to make that real in how we treat one another, and not just one-to-one, but for everyone, for those who look like us and those who don't, everyone. Not just the folks we see each day, but for those whose faces many of us will never see. So this Labor Day weekend, I invite you to see the dignity of your work and the dignity of work done by others, and take pride and show respect, and work for a world and vote for a world and amplify the voices calling for a world where all people and all workers are seen as they are, holy, sacred, and worthy of respect. Amen. We're going to sing together. That's 303 in your gray hymnal. If you have one at home, we'll put the words up on the screen. We are the earth, upright and proud. And we invite you to sing along at home.
We are the earth, upright and proud. In us the earth is knowing. Its winds are music in our mouths. In us its rivers flowing. The sun is our hearth fire, warm with the earth's desire, and with its purpose strong, we sing earth's pilgrim song. In us the earth is growing. We lift our voices, fill the skies with our exultant singing. We dedicate our minds and hearts to order, beauty bringing. Our labor is our strength, our love will win at length. Our minds will find the ways to live in peace and praise. Our day is just beginning.
At this moment, we bring our worship together to a close. Lindsay will extinguish our chalice this morning, but not the light of truth, the warmth of communion, or the fire of commitment. These we will carry with us until we are together again. I offer you this short benediction from our gray hymnal. It's number 697. The words are from Wendell Berry. The love and the work of friends and lovers belong to the task and are its health. Rest and rejoicing belong to the task and are its grace. Let tomorrow come tomorrow. Not by your will is the house carried through the night.
Go your way in peace, wander as you may. Blessed is the path you take, may love guide you on your